think this is my podcast voice for sure. You have really nice hair. You smell like butterflies and sunshine and snickerdoodles.
Welcome to Skabende Stemmer, Creative Voices in English. This time I'm gonna start slightly different. And Kenta, hang on a bit.
Okay. This is exactly why I told you I'm nervous. You're gonna play me a song. You want me to play a song? Is this even... What is this?
So...
This guitar is missing a... It's not...
So,
okay.
It's missing a string.
Yeah.
But I would like you to introduce this episode.
What is the episode about?
And it's about you. And you improvise a song with a guitar missing a string.
Okay. I'm not even in a position. I haven't played a guitar in so long. It's giving people the wrong impression that I know how to play instruments.
Now you just got a broken guitar in your hand and told.
But see, I like to play the C string, and it is exactly kind of what it's missing.
Yeah. I can hold it out for you. I like this aesthetics.
Okay, this episode is about existential dread. It takes me... Hold on.
You got it.
It's because it's when you're missing a string, it's actually quite... I'm not good enough of a musician to make it work.
Well, yeah, I think you do it quite well.
Existential dread. Existential dread. Existential dread. That's the theme of this episode.
Mm-hmm.
That's the theme of this episode. The world's on fire, not in a good way. World's on fire, and nobody gives a shit. World's on fire, people are racist, and other things that are bad. How political can I get on this podcast?
As much as you like. It's you introducing.
Oh, okay.
But it also doesn't need to be a 5-minute song.
Okay.
Just
I think I'm done. Existential dread. Existential dread. Okay, I think I'm done.
Yay!
I feel like, can I come back for episode 2? I'll prepare a better song.
We can also
bring my guitar.
That's why I asked you to prepare a song.
Yeah, but I wasn't prepared to play on a guitar that's not really in tune and 5 strings or. Yeah,
and thank you to
our sponsors.
Kind of, she didn't know it was Anastasia's guitar.
Oh, yeah! Thanks, Anastasia.
So, but yeah, it broke the string. Thank you for introducing this.
Yeah. Oh gosh. Yeah. I mean, maybe it was good. I felt like I was very off key, but maybe actually that adds to the existential dread.
Yes, exactly. Yes. Beautiful. So yeah, as this is Kenta.
Hi.
Thank you for starting this. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
It was beautiful as it should be.
Yeah. You're welcome.
But to start this,
you should wait. You should really hear me sing in Danish.
That might come. in the post. But do you want to start with telling a bit about yourself? Where?
Yeah, I sigh a lot because of existential dread. First of all, thank you so much for having me on this. I feel very, very special. I honestly thought I would never be asked because I don't speak Danish, and it's a Danish podcast.
Also English now.
It's also English, yeah. First of all, I want to mention that you're looking very handsome. I love this new haircut. You know who you look like? You look like the Star Wars guy who played Ben Kenobi. Who's that actor?
I don't know.
You look like him.
Okay,
He's a very good-looking man.
Thank you, I think.
So that's the first thing. Second of all, yes, who am I? I have a hard time with that question because I feel like that's a very big question. My name is Kenta. I was born in the U.S., in San Francisco Bay Area, in Hayward specifically. Grew up in a suburban city called Fremont. We are sandwiched between San Jose and Oakland. And it is also Ohlone land, the indigenous people of Ohlone. I guess I should say that, and then now called Fremont. Yeah, and I really think I am a fluid person, but mainly I think labels that fit me are artist as researcher or researcher as artist. I work as a business coach. I love working within intersections of like speculative design and futurism and ancestral technologies and mental health and business. And I'm a dancer also. Well, I guess that fits in with the artist part. And I don't know. I do a bunch of different things, but
and a singer.
And a singer. That is true. And a poet. And it's like just toss a coin in the water, and I've probably tried it.
Yep.
Not good, but I've tried it.
And that's what matters.
Yeah. So I don't know if that's sufficient for you as a
yes, it is
as like who I am, but my website says I am an embodiment of water.
Yes, I noticed that.
Yeah, and that water changes states, and as a flowing mass of body, it's hard to define.
Yeah,
who I am.
Yeah, you go from cold to warm and like become gaseous.
Yeah, sometimes I'm a gas. Sometimes I'm falling from the sky. Yeah. Sometimes I'm chilling in the ocean. Yeah.
I quote from your homepage.
Oh, okay. Cheers.
I am a multidimensional practitioner whose work celebrates the fluidity needed to excavate and seed more regenerative future possibilities of care. Can you translate that to
English?
To English, yes. That's actually what I wrote here in English.
Well, do you want me to read what I wrote, or what? Or do you want me to just explain what I wrote?
Explain what you wrote.
Okay. Yeah. So, obviously, being a person who works with people and runs their own business, I realize I need to be able to somehow like synthesize all the different things I'm interested in, how I like to engage with people. And I think what I wrote here is like one layer of that. And ultimately, I guess in this statement is really that my work is really about possibilities.
Yeah.
And the value that I work through is how do we build a world that is led through like loving devotion and care and kindness and nourishment. And another value of mine is how do we do that in a way that is regenerative, right? And so things are regenerative when they are in harmonious balance. Like being in relationship with you feels regenerative because I'm going to walk away from this experience feeling so much more energetic.
I hope.
Yeah, no, I know, because whenever I spend time with you, that's how I feel. And a lot of my life is led by, am I in regenerative relationships? And so even with the business coaching I do, it's about how do we build regenerative businesses, practices. So it gives back to the community, it gives back to people as much as we, it's a harmonious exchange. So, so I think as a person who is multidisciplinary, loves working in these ambiguous, amorphous intersections of thought and ideas and practices, very much so as a researcher, I have to have like themes that guide me. So that's the theme that guides me, and then the modality kind of often changes. So I write a lot. I of course move, and I teach movement, and I dance, and I work as a business coach. But yeah, that's also what I told you. Like I'm interested in making music. I'm doing chant. I chant now, and I make little spells, and
nice.
So that's kind of what I mean, I guess. But the theme is how do we, all of those things lead us to more loving futures. Yeah.
Nice. Let's hear more about the chants and spells a bit later.
Yeah.
I want to ask if you have any education.
Do I have any education? Do I look like I have education? I graduated high school. And I went to college for visual communications and design. Yeah. And then I have a certification in coaching, and I have taken a lot of supplementary courses for coaching work. But I'm pretty, like I said, I'm very much like a embodied practitioner. So I really like to be in apprenticeship or like be in a learning situation where I'm actually doing the practice. So but I went to college and stuff like that.
Okay. And do you feel like you're using it in your present work? Do you use your education or like what you've learned not in this coaching, the coaching course you took, but from college? Do you use what you learned there in your current business?
Yeah, I think so, to a certain extent, right? So most of my 20s was spent working in visual communications and design. I used to run a creative studio in Brooklyn where I lived. So a lot of the skills that I learned through running that business and helping other brands and companies and individuals through graphic design and marketing and all this stuff, like those skills are transferable. So I still use it in my business, right? Like today I was on Adobe, Photoshop and Illustrator. So I still use it, and I use some of the way of thinking about design that I learned.
Okay, nice.
But it's not at the forefront of my work anymore. So it's more of just supporting me and the way that I approach design or some of the tools. But since I'm not a working designer, it's not like something that's like at the center of my work necessarily.
No. Okay. Yeah. Okay. I remember back, especially in New York, you started something called movement design research.
Yeah.
MDR.
Yeah.
Because I had a feeling that was something that came out from college or your education, but how did it come to be, and what is it? Yeah,
so MDR, like many other things that I do, is movement design research. So it's a research project first and foremost. So it kind of changes over the years. It's a little bit on the idle side right now, slowly kind of coming back up. But I was working as a freelance designer in New York, and I started to feel really uninspired and a little bit burnt out because when you're doing client work, or at least when I was doing client work, even though I did my best to choose clients that I found myself in alignment with in terms of their business. Ultimately, like, I'm just helping someone else make money, you know, and they're telling me what they need. And I realized, like, that's what I needed to do at the time to, like, make money. But I'm also an artist at heart, more than like someone who likes to just do marketing material. I mean, some people love that and that's great, but I really want to bring my ideas to life, you know, in terms of design and creativity. And so kind of towards the end of my time in New York, I was like, I really want to like create my own thing, like my own ideas, like my own research, things that I'm thinking about in terms of design or movement. And at the time, the two things that took up my life was design, and at nighttime I went to sessions. So it's like design and movement. And so I've always been interested in like clothing, and I was getting more and more interested in like spatial design and experience design, like creating spaces, and how do we get people to think about movement differently, and how do we get people to move in spaces differently. And so, you know, I started getting this inspiration, and knowing that I was going to leave New York at the end of 2018, I launched MDR as a Kickstarter, which was like so stressful, and I have some things around it still. But yeah, like we raised money, and I invited all these different artists to come and do this 3-day pop-up shop with me. So my team and I, we, like my brother and this guy Steven, you know, and a bunch of other people, my friend Andrew and Vanessa, and they all kind of agreed to help, and we built this light up parkour installation. And the whole idea of it was like, how do we get people to maneuver in space differently through different inputs? So we built that, and then you know, this other artist Chewy, she built this projection mapping installation, and then we also invited other movers to do workshops. So it was like this 3-day of like, how do we dialogue between the intersection of movement and design? And that was, go ahead.
Can I ask?
Yeah.
Chewy,
yeah.
like Chewbacca?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, she's a really cool artist, and out of New York. And her now husband was Steven, who helped me a lot with the building of my installation. My brother helped me a lot too. So it was just like, you know, it was so stressful, but we built this, we did it. The community came. I think it was super awesome. And and then I moved to Germany, and it kind of went into dormancy. And now in the last year or so, I've reignited it as more as like a clothing project. So kind of the iteration of it now is me making clothes. How do I design clothes as a mover to experience movement in?
Nice.
So I think a lot about how do we also get inspired by like movement culture, right? So like the pants I'm wearing now is both inspired by like the Japanese hakama, or kind of what you see with like some martial artists wear, these big boxy pants, but also it's inspired by Japanese construction worker pants. So these are both different types of movement that you have to do. Right.
And they're very durable.
Very durable, and there's so much space. It's like so baggy, and so that's kind of how I'm exploring it now. And I'm also thinking a lot about how does movement and ritual come together, and how does clothing as uniform participate in ritual. So it's just kind of a container for me to geek out about things that like 99% of people don't care about, and for me to like make clothes. So
Nice.
That's what I'm doing.
It's good you get to geek out on something you like, and you get a business out of it.
That's right. So I make clothes, and I sell it sometimes. Very rarely.
What else do you do besides pants?
I make bags. I have also made like button-up shirts and stuff like that. And I mean, I started learning how to sew during the pandemic because I've always wanted to make clothes. It's so weird. I have this like love-hate relationship with clothing, because on one end, it really represents this kind of like vanity culture and consumerist culture that I'm not personally very like aligned with all the time. But on the other end, I have always been obsessed with like designers and craftsmanship, right? And I know that there's a world where these things don't always have to be like the exact same thing. So I'm really interested in like people who make clothing as like really like deeply craft. And I think I'm losing sight of what you originally asked me now. But
so what did you design?
Yeah, so it took me a couple years to actually like, I was almost about to use M word, master. No, not master. But I got, now it's what, 3-4 years since I really learned how to sew and make pants. So now I feel comfortable enough to actually sell the pants. And now I'm kind of taking time to learn how to make other things a little bit better. So the first years I was sewing like bags and I was selling bags. Yeah. I should say a bag. I made one kind of bag and then started getting into pants, and now I've made different types of pants. Yeah. And I made shorts and yeah, now I'm kind of getting excited to make like vests, not this one, but like kind of like this, like vests and shirts and t-shirts. And I have this idea for kind of like a cool bandana hat and stuff like that. So nice. Yeah, I'm excited to make more things.
And do you like when it's in this process, when you start, do you draw something or do you have an idea and then start cutting out, or how do you go about it?
I think it's like really mixed, right? Like a lot of times I sketch, like I have an idea and I'll sketch it up, and then I used to use Adobe Illustrator and I would kind of like illustrate the pattern. But a lot of times I have to physically pattern it by hand and make it and see if I like it. Which can be very like tedious and waste of material. So now I'm learning how to do 3D pattern making. Okay. So now I use this tool called Clo 3D, and I make a 3D model, and it simultaneously makes a 3D model within a 2D pattern. Nice. And so I'm using that also to study like what happens when you tweak this part of the clothing. What happens when you tweak this part?
Interesting.
Yeah. And it's actually really fascinating making clothing. It's taught me so much. One is about how much time actually it takes to make clothing, right? So going back to like consumerist culture, like the capitalist consumerist culture that we have today, and you go to H&M and you buy, I don't know, I haven't shopped in H&M for a long time, but like, I don't like $10 t-shirt or something. So like a 70 kroner shirt. Yeah. When you think about that shirt is 70 kroners, you got to really think about like, what did the person who make it get paid? When you go to H&M and you buy a $50, $40 or $50 pair of pants, right? Again, I don't know what that is in kroners. I'm kind of still bad with kroners, but like, I'm like, it takes me, and I mean, I make only one pant at a time, but like it takes me sometimes like 2 or 3 days to make a pair of pants, from start to finish, cutting and all that. Yeah. Now, I'm not a master tailor. I'm sure if you're really, really good, it's a lot faster. Yeah. And I get that they make in factories and do mass scale and stuff like that. But yeah, when I'm really in the process of making clothing, and I think about how long it actually takes, it really gives you a visceral, embodied experience of that clothing shouldn't be as cheap as it is. And if it is, somebody's being exploited along the way. Yeah. So making clothing has also taught me a lot about like how to value things. And that's something that's really important to me as I'm making clothing, is like, how do I ritualize clothing making and learn about the value of clothing, and how do I tell that to other people? How do I pass that on to other people? So,
but you don't think it's machines doing all these H&M clothing?
No, somebody's got to be there moving the clothing into machines, though. I mean, there's more efficient machines than my process, obviously. I mean, I think I can cut down my work process if I had all the right machines. But like, but still, like, we know widely how much exploitation goes on in the fashion industry alone. So
I just don't have any overview of.
Yeah. And I didn't either until I started making clothing, you know? I mean, I read like the social media posts and stuff, but when you start to really get into the craft, you're like, whoa, this is crazy how much we pay. And I use organic, you know, I try to find like good, I don't like to use the word good. I try to find materials that are as sustainable or as ethical as I can find. It's not perfect, but just try to consider it. So again, when I consider these things and it's like, whoa, what do I need to do to bring the cost down?
Yeah.
And often if I bring the cost down, then I'm starting to look at fabrics that are plastic, polyester, nylon, these are plastic.
Yeah.
So, and then you start to question, okay, in what factories were these made? How were they made? How much did the workers get paid?
Yeah, right? I get it.
And so, see, again, I bring everything becomes political with me, but
it's
what did you ask me? How many clothes? What kind of clothes I make?
No, okay.
Sorry.
So interesting that you're starting using this 3D software.
3D software, yeah.
Is it specifically made for the clothing designs?
That's right.
So you don't need to program a lot.
No. This is like the, I don't know if it's the, but in my understanding, it's like the industry tool for 3D fashion design. Okay. Yeah. If you're listening, Casper and I had a really nice date today. We had some pizza. We actually basically did this podcast before recording, and now we're on the podcast.
Now we're actually recording it.
Yeah. So it's late.
Okay, so your whole movement design research, it started out with this project where you built this big structure. And I don't think I got it, that what the main purpose of it was, because I know it was also interactive, right? The whole structure. But was it did you do a performance with it, or like did you have people come and play with it?
Yeah, actually both. Okay. So during the opening, the structure was there for people to play on.
Yeah.
The original idea, which was very hard to execute, so it kind of got changed. We didn't give ourselves enough time to execute it, but the original idea was that basically it was like a parkour structure, right? So you can like hang on it, you can swing on it, all of it.
Yeah.
And we poked holes in it and slid LED lights into it.
Nice.
And then we tried to put sensors on it. So the idea was that the different poles would light up based on an algorithm. And then when you touch it, the algorithm would make you try and move to another pole. Right? So the idea of it is like, how do we design opportunities for people to move in ways that are different? Right? So the whole concept was called Move Different.
Yeah.
Right? And it's like so interesting because movers naturally do it. Like as a parkour person, you walk down the street and you look at a structure, you're like, oh, that's a parkour playground, right? You're a skater, you skate, and you're like, ooh, that's a skate course. You're a dancer, you look at something, you're like, ooh, I can session there. Like we literally just did that, right? I was like, oh, we can session here.
Exactly, yeah.
So as movers, we start to look at space in different ways. And so it's like, how do we create that opportunity for people who may not have a movement practice that's so spatial? So that was the initial structure. And then also we had performers in the evening. And we invited them to try and use the structure as part of their performance. Yeah. But yeah, anyways, the sensor thing didn't work. It was because it was so hard because the entire thing was metal, and it was like, what kind of sensors do we put on? And it became so complicated. So it ended up just being that it would react to music. It would just react to like the music playing. So, but it was still fun. But it was like this fun light up.
It's always good to have a very complex idea.
Yeah.
So you've at least reached some of the way.
Yeah.
And know from the beginning that it's okay to not reach to that goal.
Yeah. Our original ideas, Casper, they were so fucking wild. Like, I originally wanted to have a floor that was essentially, we would use these actuators. So actuators are these like, the little like they're not hydraulics, but like these mini motors that like they can push you up and down like this. Yeah. So I wanted to like make a room full of that actuator. So the floor would literally, the landscape of the floor would change, right? And I was like, oh, that would be a fucking interesting way to get people to move differently is that literally the floor changes structure.
To slowly push you like in one direction.
Yeah, or just like maybe you're moving around or you're rolling, because, you know, we have a very floor work background, you and I. So imagine rolling and all of a sudden, as you're rolling, a hill pops up, like a mini hill, right? So it's like a little hill pops up, right? And then we could have done a lot of different research around like topography and movement, right? And like how do our bodies have to adapt to different floor topography? But actuators are quite expensive, and getting like 500 of those to fill a exhibit room was way too expensive. Plus we didn't know how to do it. So my brother has an engineering background, so like he was really the crux of getting it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, right now it's a clothing project, but in the future, if I have a little bit more time and money and or funding,
you're gonna do this.
I would love to do more like bigger and bigger installation projects. Like I would love to design like adult playground spaces, or kids can be in it too. But you know what I mean, where it's like, no kids, no kids,
No.
but yes to cats, humans and cats.
Okay, sure.
And maybe goldfishes.
Yeah. Whatever you like.
But definitely not kids. No, but like, I still have like dreams of like, I have so many crazy ideas, but these are so expensive. Why are fun ideas so expensive, Casper?
It sounds like I just imagine a big art installation in a big museum where it costs some maybe 100,000 or more.
Yeah.
500, half a million Danish kroners.
Yeah, I would have to get into that, but I'm just not so interested in the art world in that way. So I'm not personally like invested in pursuing it right now, but the wish is still there. There's other ideas I can pursue in the meantime, but
you can do it.
Yeah.
And maybe I get some ideas during my studies.
Yeah.
So
we can jam.
Do something. Yes.
Yeah.
Cool. I believe in you that
Thank
you will do some of this one time.
Yeah.
Okay, and it developed, this MDR developed into designing clothes.
Yeah.
That you get inspired by how to move in the clothes, or how the clothes will move you. Cool.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Do you want to say something? Sounds like
no. It's just, I just think about like, as a person who practices animist values or thinking, you know, animism is like the belief that things, objects are also like there's spirits in things, you know?
Yeah.
You know, my background is Japanese American, and in Japan we have Shintoism. Shintoism is a Japanese folk indigenous spiritual practice, and it's an animistic practice, right? So you look at like a lot of Japanese like Studio Ghibli films, there's always like little spirits running around. When I think about things from an animistic perspective, I also think like clothing and fabric, and these can also have spirits and also have a soul. And so it's, I really think about things from a relational dynamic. So in that way, it's like, yes, I'm designing clothes that can like, that you can move in, but also as you move in it, it starts to wear in a specific way, and you build a relationship with that clothing. And then, maybe, you know, you said that it's like, maybe that clothes starts to move you in a different way now, you know? So this is like an interesting part of it. Again, very geeky that most people don't care about, but it's like, how does that clothing also become part of your movement practice?
Yes. All that matters is that it's, you care about it.
Yeah, exactly.
We should care. What?
You want to take a break?
No, a jingle.
Yeah, let's jingle it. Are we over time? Let's jingle. Let's jingle. Existential dread. Hit it. Existential dread. World's on fire. Not in a good way.
You are a dancer also.
Jeg er danser.
And you're learning Danish.
Jeg er danser.
Which means?
Jeg elsker dans.
And means?
It means?
Yeah, for all those who don't speak Danish.
I love dance.
Beautiful. How does your dance journey look like? How was it?
How was my dance? It's done now. How was your dance journey?
How is your dance journey? Excuse my English.
No. Your English is beautiful. My dance journey is I think quite very wavy. You know, I think it quite similar. Maybe I think we've connected about our dance journeys. Like it's very like, I don't know. Like, I started dancing when I was like a teenager, early teens, preteens, because I like watched You Got Served and like other dance films and stuff, and I was like, dang, those guys are cool.
We have never talked about this, I think, but that's also a movie I got inspired by.
Heck yeah, right? Omarion, and yeah, so like I watched that, and I played a lot of sports at that time, and so I was like quite athletic, and you know, we would have access to like these different gyms, and like there's always these like rooms, and we try to dance, and I think at that time, like you know, being a what is it, pubescent teenager, socialized as a man, there were definitely like, how do I attract the not even for me, like not even like the opposite gender, although I think maybe that's how I was thinking at the time, but I mean, as I went into my teens, I realized like, oh, maybe I'm interested in more than just, well, gender is a fluid construct and so it's weird for me to say like I was interested in the opposite sex, but like at the time I was like, how do I, like dancing is cool, and when I dance people seem to like me, so you know, I was like very nerdy, and I just played sports, and I had like very low self-esteem, and I mean I still do, but I was like that, I threw that one in. No, I think my self-esteem is fine now, but clearly. Like I was trying to figure out who I am in the world, right? And so I think dance gave me a space to be like, oh, that's like something I can pursue. And also just like really fun, trying to do backspins and handstands. And so it started there. Then I started getting more and more serious into breaking. And is this interesting? Like, should I tell you my quick story? Okay. Yeah. Just stop me, because I'm a ranter. So just like cut me off if I talk a lot.
I know some of it, but those listen may not.
Okay. Yeah. So like I got into breaking, and where I grew up, like you didn't just go to a dance studio and learn how to break. Like it was just like there's different schools around where I grew up, and people would use MySpace to like find each other and find other dancers. And one of my really good friends, like at the time was not my friend, and he went to another school. And I don't know exactly what the story is, but like I think the way we tell it is like we found each other, and we've kind of realized that there's this other kid who also breaks at this other school. And then he like called me out on MySpace. He was like
for a battle.
Yeah, like he's like, you're whack. And I was like, And then like I met up with him and like the kids of his school. And then I think that's when I was like, oh, there's other kids breaking. And before that, I think there's like a few people who were older than me that were breaking at like not even breaking, like popping, you know, and doing like hip hop. Yeah. Like more like non-breaking hip hop dance. How do I say that? But like, so I was just hanging out with them to dance. Yeah. But then I started realizing, oh, there's other breakers in my city. And then from there, slowly started to grow more and more and more. And I got introduced to the older kids and where they were breaking and where they were sessioning. And I started going to those sessions. And so it was very much like community, like each one teach one kind of thing. You know, nice. You just kind of had to like know people and know where to go to practice. And then I just practiced a lot at my school, like outside. Yeah. And so, yeah, I started dancing. I mean, my dance journey is huge. Mm-hmm. Like, I mean, not huge as in like it's important, but like
there's a lot
of steps happen. So I'll keep it short. But like I grew up breaking, and then breaking led me into more like choreography work, and I joined a studio and like learned how to dance, like more like choreography, studio dance, stage dance, and then from there I really felt like what dance gave me was like this cathartic emotional release. You know, as somebody who was socialized in a way that really repressed a lot of his emotions, dancing and like theater, I also did theater and spoken word and stuff like that. Nice. Like these things allowed me to emote in a safe space. Yeah. Right. When in a space where like audiences were literally forced to watch me emote, you know? And so I really like started to understand like dancing, like I was starting to crave, like I want something deep out of this practice. Yeah. You know, I don't want to just like do it for like for somebody to crush on me anymore. So it really moved from like this vanity thing where it's like I wanted somebody to like me to like I really care about dancing and there's something here. But when you're like a teenager and a young adult, like you don't really know what you're looking for. You know, I mean, I don't, but like I didn't know even more at that point. Yeah. So
you became a bit more mature.
Yeah, and so I was like, okay, I want this. So I tried like things like contemporary. Like contemporary gave me a little bit more of the emotion and emoting, right? So I did. So I started to go into that, and then I got introduced to Bill T. Jones, and he had this work called he's a well-known choreographer, Black American queer choreographer, in I think out of New York, and he had a performance called "Still Here," about his experience being gay and HIV, partner with HIV and AIDS and stuff like that. And they did a documentary about him. And in order to create that piece, he had, and I hope I'm not butchering this is how I remember it. He had used like movement therapy, like he used movement as a way to work with chronically ill people who were basically on their way to dying. Yeah. And he worked with them, and then he created a language of movement around it, and then that became the choreography for this piece. Nice. And when I watched that in college, Casper, I was like, this is what I want to do. Oh my gosh. It's so poetic. It's so healing. It's so embodied. I mean, I didn't have these words, you know, but at that time I was just like, I don't know what that is, but that made me feel things, and I want that. And I want to help people feel things like that. Yeah. And it still took me many, many years. Like after that, I was still breaking. I moved to New York. I came across house. House was the second thing that dropped my jaw. House culture, not even just like house dance, but like the way house was shared in New York to me. I was like, wait a second. It's a little bit like what I get out of breaking, the athleticism and the dancing and the grooves, but there's a lot of feelings and a lot of connection and a desire for depth and a desire for intellect in a different way. A lot of the elders in the community who shared ideas with me, I was like, ooh. Like, I don't even think I appreciated that much at the time. But like now looking back, because I don't live in New York, I'm like, wow, I had so many amazing people like Brian Polite and even people like B-Girl Tara and from the Mau crew, like all those ladies, like, Bravo, like people, Conrad, like they just like share things with you. Yeah. And I was just, oh man. So that was the second time I was like, wait a second. Okay. I feel this is nice. I like this. And then I think from there I started to deviate away from dancing, just dancing. And I started getting more interested into movement as a whole. And I came across like Ida Portal and Fighting Monkey and I think there's like a lot of variations of it now, but
I got a lot more into the movement, like movement training.
Yeah, exactly. And then when I came to, now that I'm in Europe, I think a lot of that has been fleshed out for me. So now I feel a lot more comfortable, like where I'm at with dance, which is like...
Fleshed or flashed?
Fleshed out. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, like I feel a lot more comfortable with where I am in dancing. Because similar, we talked about this, but in the past I felt a lot of pressure as a dancer, like, oh, I should battle. I need to hold a certain standard or like a certain stance in the community. I need to be seen or perceived a certain way. I need to be at a certain level, you know, to be respected or, you know. And it's true, like the dance world can sometimes be very toxic. So
I can relate a lot to what you just said.
So I think now I feel a lot more comfortable with where I am, which is like, I love dance. I love teaching movement. As an embodied tool for play and self-research and connection and also just the wellness of the movement practice in the body. And I love dance. But I don't feel so much pressure to like be seen. Well, I love I do like being seen as a dancer, to be honest, but like I don't feel so much pressure to like battle and da-da-da and be seen this way and win and like
to be into doing a certain way that is expected.
Yeah. Every once in a while I'll feel like, oh, maybe I should, but like 99.9% of the time I'm just like, I feel quite comfortable with my relationship to movement and dance now. Right now, at least. Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
Just to go back a bit, I would just like to, because you have first-hand experience on the house culture in New York.
Yeah.
As I know that it started out around New York, but maybe you can tell a bit more about it. But you can also maybe talk a bit about the how you see the differences. Like how is that culture in New York compared to what you have seen in Europe?
Wow. Okay. I feel wildly unqualified to talk about this topic. And
okay, your experience, maybe just keep it to that.
Yeah. Because I think there are so many more people in the community that would probably have a more interesting experience and thought, like be able to actually really share about what they notice being so deep in those communities. Yeah. So for me, my experience, and I'll keep this short, but my experience is that I fell into house dance and house culture and clubbing culture by accident. And I learned house not necessarily as like a dance step, but like, it's so cliche to say, but it's like as like a way of life. Like it was just like a lifestyle and like a love for the music and love for the community. And it was just, I don't know, like in New York, you'll see all ages in the club, and people will tell you stories. And just because way the culture is, like you'll have block parties even to this day, or you'll go to Central Park and people will be, roller skating, and there'll be people hustling or housing in the middle. You got a lot of the originals and the elders there, and so the way that you really learn about the culture is like it's so oratory, and it's so like I almost want to say it's so embodied, it's like they're passing down the stories to you. They're passing down the torch to you, and in no way where I feel like I'm like, sometimes I feel like really like an imposter in those communities, but I feel really blessed to have gotten to like be there, because I didn't realize that these people like were such big names outside of the spaces I was in. I was like, oh, okay, cool. That's that person.
Because there was just a part of it.
Yeah. And that's not to say I didn't respect them. Of course, I knew who they were, and I was like, cool, but like it also just felt like, like I really need to give a shout out to like cricket, and I learned how to house from cricket a lot, but I didn't necessarily go to class and learn how to dance. It was like cricket took time during session to pass things on to me, or when he saw me in the club, he took time to pass things on to me, or every once in a while he held like classes I'd go to and stuff. But whereas here in Europe, it's just different because it's not New York. Nowhere else can replicate it. That's just how it is. And people in Europe got access to house culture and house dance in a different way. In my opinion, it feels like, and again, I'm not super deep into house culture here, but it feels like it's very battle heavy. Yeah. And it's very much like about like you being a dancer and like how good are you and how many steps you have. And, what I like about the way I saw house dance approached in New York and what I gravitate to is so much soul and the musicality and the slowness and the connection and the depth. I was like, it's so creamy, so buttery. I love it. Yeah. And sometimes when I dance with housers out here, it can feel very like steps and steps. And, it's like, I don't know if you're listening to music, but I think you're hitting the beats because you're moving your feet so fast. And like, you're not looking at me, we're not connecting. And that's okay. Sometimes it's okay. Like sometimes I'll go to the club events and like I just want to dance by myself. So I'm sorry if I'm not connecting with you is just because I don't want to connect right now. But like at session, if they want to like dance with you, and sometimes it's just like, ooh, like it feels more like you want to practice battling together rather than, you know, I don't know. I just don't feel connected to it, you know, and we don't really talk about the culture. We don't sit and talk about the music. We don't sit and talk, you know, it's like, it's just about the steps and the dance. But I get that's how, you know, it migrated here through class and steps and studios. So.
And maybe it's, you can see it a bit as in New York, it's more like a lifestyle.
Yeah.
It's a culture on its own, while in Europe maybe it's a bit more split up.
Yeah.
So there's this dance.
It's like an activity that you go and do. Yeah. Now, I was back in New York a couple earlier this year. Yeah. And I want to say also that culture changes, you know. And so I really saw how much it was very different for me going back to New York this time around and like experiencing house culture. So culture also changes. So, you know, I'm also romanticizing a very specific time in my life and a very specific time and moment in how house culture was experienced for me at that time. Yeah. You know?
Yeah.
And I just have a lot of gratitude for it, and that's good. That's it. Yeah.
But I guess it's natural that culture change.
Yeah.
It does.
Yeah. And I think when I first moved here, I was very quick to be like, it's so different.
When you moved to Europe?
Yeah. I was like, this isn't it. But now I'm like, you know what? It's different. And I'm not here to like judge it. I have an opinion about it. But like, yeah, so then don't participate. It's like, cool. I'm not going to participate in it then, you know?
Simple.
Yeah.
I do though think that at least I see here in Denmark, because I live here and all that at least now the dancing and the club culture, they're moving closer together, and that's beautiful to see.
I think that the way that this community here is doing, and I would like to say I'm part of it, but, you know, shout out to the people who've been cultivating it, you know, including you and Robin and Lotfi and Savan and all the DJs and Mary Kay and all these people, you know, everybody doing the different parts to cultivate this culture, this specific to Copenhagen, to Denmark. And I know it wasn't always like this, but I really see that there's so much effort to try and have an intentional house community. And again, great. It's not going to be the same as New York. Why should it be? It's not New York, you know, but there is such a beautiful effort to say, hey, we love house culture. We love house music. We want to respect it. We want to respect how it can be translated to its own version here. And there's different people organizing different ways of doing it. But a big part of it is, you're right, yeah, a lot of the DJs and the dancers are one and the same. More and more, and also there's a lot of crossovers and a lot of sharing of who's playing where and what parties are happening, and so I love that.
I think actually, if I could give a shout out, I can because it's my podcast.
Yeah, it's your podcast. I'm gonna shout out myself, Casper.
No, actually, I think it goes back to a guy called Daniel.
Yeah,
I feel like that's when it's kind of like a small seed was planted.
Yeah.
Deep Brown.
Yeah, you know? Yeah.
Deep Brown, when he was playing in Jolene, he had his Thursday club, and I think this was maybe 8 years ago or something like a bit, around that 6-8 years ago. Awesome. And somehow Lotfi got in touch with him.
Yeah, if I didn't say shout out to Lotfi, I also really wanted to shout out Lotfi. Yeah, I'm so happy. Yeah.
So I think that was kind of like the seed that was planted. Lotfi and Deep Brown.
Yeah.
Shout out to you too. If you ever listen.
It's really, I really praise Lotfi a lot, but that's just because I have a more relationship with Lotfi. But I've gotten to meet Daniel and talk to him, and I really I don't know the full history there, but I really respect him, and also just like Mira, and just more and more just how it's blended these different it's no longer like DJ, dancer, or like club sessions.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We keep on talking, so let's get the jingle. I wrote here, I forgot why I wrote it, but I wrote, is creating art a way to find peace within?
Wow, that's deep. I mean, I think that's very personal, isn't it? I mean, to each different people and what their practices are. For me, yes, 100%.
I think it was. I was just browsing around on your homepage.
Yeah.
mdr.com.
.studio.
.studio.
Yeah.
And
my personal website.
KentaThomasNaoi.com.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just browsing around
Yeah.
on those, and I think that's how I got to this question. I had some feeling about it, but for you, it's very much a way to find peace within, to create art.
I think so. Yeah. I mean, I think about, well, what does it mean to create art, right? And I mean, it's different for everybody, but I think for me, like, to create art requires a practice. And practice is this beautiful amorphous thing, but we can dedicate ourselves to it, right? And it's like, in that dedication, we come face to face with ourselves, and we can learn about ourselves. And like, yeah, I feel like I'm trying to sound super deep, and it's not, but it's like, it's hard to describe, but yeah, I think it's like Laura. For those who don't know, Laura's my kone, my wife, my keista, and yeah, like Laura has a very dedicated yoga practice, and I look at that, I'm like, wow. The practice it's a divine practice. It's a dedicated practice. It's a spiritual practice. Because I think about a practice as a ritual that we come back to and offer ourselves to it day and day and day, and say, hey, here's a piece of us. What can I create with the universe, and the deities and the spirits, whatever? It's like, here I am. It's a ritual. I offer myself to you. What can we create? And so in that way, that practice becomes this divine spiritual practice. And through that practice, like, any dedication to a spiritual practice, you can find that inner peace, And I mean, I wish I had better words for it right now. But yeah, like, inner peace in itself is a big topic, right? How do you define that, and what does that actually mean, and da-da-da. But like, I think it's a way to get to know yourself, and it's a way to have a cathartic, embodied space to research and to output and let go of ideas and put things into the world. So yeah, it's like, I think it gives you a lot of different ways to know yourself, and maybe through knowing yourself and knowing your relationship and dynamics to the self and to the other, you can find some resemblance of what peace might feel like for you. I don't know.
That was a very good answer.
Yeah, thanks.
To this question, I don't exactly know why I wrote.
Yeah. No, but it's just like, it's a really great question. Like, I think the more I do like collective liberation work and like decolonial work for myself, I come back to my spiritual practice. And part of that is like my like Buddhism. And I think about, well, with Buddhism or whatever it is, like, or any animistic practice, like, what do? You have an offer, you have a ritual, especially with like Shintoism, like you have offers to the deities, to the spirits, right? To your ancestors. And I don't know, it's just simply by showing up every day for the ritual and for the text and for the practice, whatever that is for you, you start to have inner peace. Art is the same for me. Yeah. As long as you treat it as a spiritual practice, you come back to it day in and day out. You offer yourself to it. See what happens. Yeah.
Yeah, I think for me it could also be some sort of finding peace.
Yeah.
Within myself, because it's can be quite spiritual.
Yeah.
For me.
Yeah. Like, you sit down, you like you have an idea in your mind, or you're feeling something that you want to process, right? And I mean, do you feel like you can process ideas or feelings like through music and dance and
I feel
things?
like my approach for with music is often that I don't have it's 50-50, but
Yeah.
often it is that I don't have any idea that I want to do exactly this or I want to do something like this. I just start something and then I just follow the feeling I get from listening to one thing and like, okay, cool, now this would fit into this one. And through that, I've kind of like work with an empty mind and I work a lot with my emotions.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just projecting my assumptions or like how I'm responding to what you're saying. But to me, that sounds so spiritual. I mean, it's like empty the mind. I mean, that is very much, there's like Buddhistic values to kind of the empty mind. And also following the feeling. Wow. That's like something so much of society doesn't know how to do, is tap into their emotions and feel it. And just like give yourself the space to explore what that is.
Yeah.
Right? So you're like connecting to a really deep part of you, and then something beautiful comes out of that.
Yeah.
You know? And I mean, it doesn't always have to be the masterpiece, but like the practice to me is the beautiful part.
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
And
Yeah.
I really see that it is so clear when I listen back, if you
Yeah.
can say that. When I listen to the music, I can really see and feel like what state I was in,
Yeah.
because I exactly just let it flow.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, to me, artistic practice is extremely spiritual, especially if you are a spiritual person and you want to include some of those things into it. But for me, like artistic research has so much like decolonial emphasis to it these days that it just feels so liberating every time I research something through my art, you know? Like, yeah, like even the clothing making, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. There's something also very meditative about just showing up for a practice and like doing it, whether it's dancing or
Definitely, yeah.
yeah, sewing or whatever. So yeah.
Yeah, all kinds of craft work or
Yeah.
dancing, it can be very meditative,
Yeah.
extremely. Yeah.
Yeah.
A question that just came up.
Yeah.
So you grew up in the States.
Correct.
The thought was just like something in the line of that your practice as an artist in the States compared to Europe or Denmark.
Yeah. Whoa.
Is there a difference? And how is the difference? Because I know
Yeah.
there is a difference.
What is it? What's the difference?
Well, you tell me.
It's a trick question. Well, I think the most important thing to share is just like I'm in a completely different place in my life than where I was when I had left New York City. You know, when I was leaving New York City, I was like working as a creative strictly. And so like a lot of my time in order to survive was doing creative for other people and other companies and to sell shit. And then when I moved to Europe, I made a point to take a sabbatical and really think about who am I as an artist? What do I want to put out into the world? And I mean, it took a really, really long time. It's still a huge process to this day. But in that process, I, became a coach and I pursued some other things. And I think, I got access to different residencies and I got to like really pursue art in a different way. So one, I want to acknowledge that like I have another kind of privilege here because I have more privilege of my life where it is now. Also that I'm farther in my career, I have more control over my time and my money. And that contributes a lot to my well-being and therefore how much time I have to just like sit and think about my work and like how I want to create work, right? So that's like privilege that I've had and I've earned and I've gained in some form or another. So that's different. I'm in a different place in my life in that way. Another thing though is I think art in Europe, like I also heard it in Anastasia's podcast episode with you, but here in Denmark and in Germany also, maybe even more in Germany, I'm surrounded so much more with artists who get like residencies and funding is such a big part of the equation in Europe, and I know it is in the US also, but I just wasn't exposed to those people when I lived in US. I think a lot of times in the US it's like, you want to be a creative, okay, go work as a creative in the corporate capitalist structure, you know, so like sell your creativity literally.
Yeah.
And again, some of that is fine, can be fun, whatever, like not here to yuck everybody's yum, right? I mean, that would be a blanket statement, but like I think here it kind of opened my mind to be like, oh, like maybe not every one of my creative choices have to be like, how do I sell this? Right? Like in the US, I feel a lot of like creativity is tied to like the consumerist culture, and like I need to be able to sell this. So like even music is like, this needs to be a banger, so people listen to it and I blow up and I get money, you know. Or like I need to be a really good dancer so I can audition for the show and I can do this. Whereas like here in Europe it's like oh, maybe I get funding to make this like really weird piece, right? Or maybe like I can just get this like really good job on the side and then like pursue art in a completely different way. So I think there's a lot more ease here in Europe in some ways, a lot less like survivorship to the art practice. It's still here. I know it's still here, but like compared to the US, it was like, it felt so, especially in New York, it was like, it felt like hustle culture times 1,000. Yeah. And I just feel a lot more ease here. And I think for me feeling that ease, my art has changed. Okay. Yeah.
I see. So it's quite difficult for you to compare being an artist in these two, because you're in such different place from that time.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't know, if I move back to the US now, I just think that in the US art is really commodified in a different, it feels like it's commodified in a different way than here.
Commodified?
Yeah.
What does that
mean? It's like again, it's like tied to like, how do we sell this art?
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. Whereas here, like, people just like make weird shit. It's like, cool. I'm down for your weird shit, right? It's like, not everybody's like, oh, I need to hit Spotify best play today.
It's so funny to hear your, how you compare this. And like,
what do you think?
It's just funny to see your perspective, because I didn't know about this about America, or like just the States. But it's true. Yeah. That in Europe we apply for funding to do some weird shit that we could not in other ways sell. Yeah. Because who would buy that?
Yeah. And I think that's awesome. Like, I want to live in that world. And I want to live in that world times 100. Like, I know that it's still a struggle for a lot of artists in Europe to get funding. And it depends on the country. Like, I hear like France is a little bit better and stuff. Here in Denmark, it's a small country. I know getting funding, especially from the state, is hard, especially as a dancer. Like, I want a world where everybody can just like fucking work on their weird shit, because we need that. You know, I'm not going to always watch or listen to your weird shit because it's going to be too weird for me. But like, I love that it exists in the world, you know? Yeah, I mean, like me, when I lived in the US, everything I did was like, how do I brand this? How do I market this? How do I sell this to people? Yeah. And my entire thinking process around creativity was clouded with commercialization of that creativity. Yeah. And here I'm just like, I'm working on Munobuto, which is one of my decolonial dance movement practices for myself, like ancestral movement, da-da-da. Like, no one's gonna, I don't want to perform that. That's for me. That's my art practice. That's my research, you know? And I don't know, maybe if I was in the US, I'd be like, oh, how do I do Munobuto workshops? How do I do this? How do I film it and become IG famous? You know? And still sometimes I have those thoughts, but I feel also that it's not like this obsessive thinking around like, how do I like sell my work all the time? Yeah. Okay.
But the last, because I said in the beginning that we're going to come back to it. Okay. I said we went back to the chants and spells. Can you say that shortly so we don't get too much over time?
About what? About what the chants and spells
are? Yeah, what is it? Why do you do it? And what is it for?
So the chants and the spells came about because as I'm exploring more about who I am as a coach and artist, and what does it even mean to be a coach? You know, why do I say that? Really what it is I want to be a healer. And I use the word business coach because part of what I like to do is work with commerce, right? Money is like this like thing that creates a lot of power dynamics, right? So I get to work within these intersections also. So now looping in the decolonial aspects of it and like connecting back with my ancestry and like magic and witchcraft and all this stuff, you know, and my spiritual practice, I started realizing how much chanting is a part of Japanese culture and ritual. And when I think about what it would my personal magical practice be, well, I can create spells, right? And I can write spells. And so part of it was because I wanted to reconnect with writing Japanese character and studying Japanese character and writing. And another one was, well, how do I string these words? The beautiful thing about Japanese characters, you can string them together to create new words. And so like I started doing that, and then I started listening to very old Japanese folk music. And some of them were about calling in the rain and stuff like that for farming. And they were all chanting. Nice. And I was like, oh, this is beautiful. Like, this is it. This is spiritual. This is magical. This is collective. This is like, oh, I love this. So I can go into it a lot, but for the time's sake, that was kind of what it came out of.
Okay, yeah.
And so I started writing spells and like started chanting. And it's kind of like a mantra, you know, like sometimes when I'm like going through something or when I'm, you know, taking a shower and preparing for a client call, like one of the spells I do is like suishin, which is like just like water, God, water, heart. And it just reminds me to like be fluid, like everything that happens, okay, you are protected by the spirits of the water and by the fluidity of your heart.
Nice.
So suishin, so I chant that suishin, yeah, like this, and it's just like it just feels, yeah, it's my protection.
Okay, beautiful, nice.
Yeah.
Thank you for that explanation.
Thank you for asking, and thanks for having me on this podcast. I feel so special.
Now you're ending it, and it's so fine. Yeah. Maybe you want to end it in the same way?
What time is it? Your
just
neighbors,
to wrap it around.
Your neighbors are going to hate us.
No.
Should I play the same song?
Play a fitting outro.
Oh my gosh, what does that sound? Why does it? Oh, it's because this. Why don't you just cut this?
Because it's not my guitar.
Now it's time to say goodbye, 'cause it's late. Thanks for listening to our conversation. Hope it was helpful wherever you are. Okay, goodbye. Existential dread. I hope your life is okay. Free Palestine. And other people in Congo and Sudan and Hawaii. And, you know, just free the world, you know?
Yeah.
Oh, free the world. Liberate. Collective liberation for all. Yeah.
Beautiful, Kenta. Thank you, and thank you for listening, and thank you, Kenta, for coming here and sharing with everybody both your beautiful voice, your guitar playing with a broken guitar, and your story.
Thank you, Casper. I appreciate you.
And your words. You too. Take care, everybody. If you like it, share, like, find Kenta. Where can you find you?
You can find me on Instagram at Kenta Thomas, and you can find me on my website, and just if you find me on my Instagram, you can see all the links there. Like I have a Substack and
perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you. Now
bye.
We're gonna end. Thank you.